While the world watches Russia face unprecedented sanctions and isolation, one nation continues to dance with Moscow like nothing has changed. In fact, they're dancing closer than ever before. That nation is India, and its relationship with Russia is defying every geopolitical playbook written in the last century. While Western allies impose embargo after embargo, India has quietly become Russia's economic lifeline, purchasing more Russian oil in 2 years than they did in the previous 2 decades combined. To understand why India and Russia are inseparable today, we need to travel back to 1971, a year that changed everything. While the United States was backing Pakistan during the Bangladesh Liberation War, it was the Soviet Union that stood firmly with India. When the USS Enterprise, an American aircraft carrier, sailed into the Bay of Bengal as a show of force against India, the Soviets responded by dispatching nuclear submarines to the region. This wasn't just diplomatic support. It was a statement that India would never stand alone against global superpowers. India's Prime Minister, at the time, later said that this moment taught India who its true friends were when the chips were down. But the relationship runs even deeper than military backing. In 1955, when India was still finding its feet as an independent nation, the Soviet Union became the first major power to offer unconditional technological transfer. Unlike the West, which came with strings attached, demanding political alignment, economic reforms, or military bases, the Soviets offered a simple deal. We'll share our technology, and you can remain non-aligned. This philosophy created what Indians call time-tested friendship, a relationship built not on temporary interests, but on mutual respect for sovereignty. When India conducted its nuclear tests in 1998, facing sanctions from the entire Western world, Russia was among the few nations that didn't condemn the move. Instead, they quietly continued their nuclear cooperation programs. The real renaissance began with Vladimir Putin's visit to India in October 2000, which initiated the India-Russia annual summit process and led to the signing of the Declaration on the India-Russia Strategic Partnership. Putin understood something that many Western leaders missed. India wasn't just another emerging market or developing nation to be courted. It was a rising power that would reshape the global order, and Russia wanted to be its closest partner in that journey. Fast forward to 2022, Russia invades Ukraine. The West erupts in fury. Sanctions rain down on Moscow like never before. But India? India didn't join the bandwagon. Instead, it started buying more Russian oil. Much more. In 2021, India imported just $2 billion worth of Russian oil. By 2023, that figure had exploded to over $46 billion, making India the largest buyer of Russian crude oil globally. Why? Because India got a deal it couldn't refuse. Discounted crude oil, sometimes up to 30% cheaper than global prices. In a country where energy demand is exploding, that's not just economics, that's survival. But here's what makes this truly revolutionary. India isn't just buying oil, they're completely restructuring how international trade works. Enter the rupee-ruble mechanism, a payment system that bypasses the dollar-dominated SWIFT network entirely. When Western sanctions cut Russian banks off from the global financial system, India and Russia created their own. Russian exporters now receive payments in rupees, which they can use to buy Indian goods, from pharmaceuticals to textiles to machinery. This isn't just clever accounting, it's a fundamental challenge to the post-World War II financial order. For decades, the US dollar has been the undisputed king of international trade. The results are staggering. Bilateral trade between India and Russia reached $65 billion in 2023, compared to just $8 billion in 2021. But it's not just about volume, it's about variety. Russia now supplies India with everything from fertilizers that feed millions of Indian farmers to advanced metals needed for India's booming manufacturing sector. The military dimension of the India-Russia relationship makes headlines, but the reality is far more sophisticated than simple arms deals. Russia isn't just selling weapons to India, they're transferring technology, sharing manufacturing capabilities, and jointly developing next-generation systems. Take the BrahMos cruise missile, a joint venture between India and Russia that has become one of the world's most advanced supersonic missiles. The S-400 air defense system purchase tells an even more intriguing story. When India decided to buy this advanced missile system for $5.4 billion, the US threatened sanctions under their CAATSA law, the Countering America's Adversaries Through Sanctions Act. India's response was diplomatic but firm. They would not compromise their defense needs for anyone's geopolitical preferences. What happened next reveals the unique nature of India's position. Despite the threats, the US has largely held back from imposing serious sanctions. Why? Because America needs India as a counterweight to China's growing power. This created a fascinating dynamic where India could maintain relationships with both Russia and the West simultaneously, something almost no other country has managed. Nothing cements alliances like shared challenges, and both India and Russia are dealing with an increasingly assertive China. This creates one of the most complex triangular relationships in modern geopolitics. For India, China represents an existential security challenge. The 2020 Galwan Valley clash, where Indian and Chinese soldiers fought hand-to-hand combat at 14,000 feet above sea level, reminded India that China views them as a strategic competitor. Since then, India has deployed over 50,000 troops along the China border, backed by advanced weapon systems, many of them Russian. Russia's relationship with China is more complicated. While they maintain a strategic partnership, Russia is increasingly uncomfortable with China's growing dominance. Chinese companies are moving into traditional Russian spheres of influence in Central Asia. Chinese technology is competing with Russian systems in global markets. Most concerning for Moscow, China's economy is now 5 times larger than Russia's, making Russia the junior partner in their relationship. This is where India becomes crucial for Russia's long-term strategy. India offers Russia a major power partnership where Russia isn't the junior partner. With India's growing economy and technological capabilities, the relationship provides Russia with genuine strategic alternatives to excessive dependence on China. Russia has been instrumental in India's civil nuclear program, helping build atomic power plants and providing fuel supply guarantees. This cooperation continues despite international sanctions on Russia, demonstrating the partnership's resilience. The West is beginning to recognize that they can't simply isolate Russia if India and other major economies continue deepening their relationships with Moscow. This is forcing a recalibration of Western strategy, moving from attempted isolation to managed competition and selective engagement. For global markets, the India-Russia relationship is creating new trade routes, payment systems, and economic partnerships that operate independently of Western oversight. This isn't necessarily confrontational, but it represents a fundamental diversification of global economic power. The India-Russia relationship represents one of the most significant partnerships shaping the 21st century global order. Built on 7 decades of strategic trust, strengthened by economic complementarity, and driven by shared challenges from China's rise and Western pressure, this relationship is fundamentally altering how international relations work. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe.